right, we're going to continue on here this afternoon. We're now joined by Carson Hocevar, driver of the number 77 Spire Motorsport Chevrolet. If you have a question for Carson, please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. Who'd like to start us off? All right, we'll start with Dustin, and then we'll go to Jordan.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. First of all, sorry for your loss this week. You, I know within the last hour, posted the picture on social of you, and I'm guessing your grandmother and grandparents. Can you just tell the story and the significance about that photo and why it was important to share that with the world?
Yeah, I mean, those were photos that I'd never seen before. My grandma was, they're going through my grandparents' house and found a bunch of photos that they sent to me last night and this morning. So those were photos that I had never seen and I forgot about. But, I thought that was important for me to look at them or post them today. She fell and when I was getting ready to qualify for Phoenix, and my grandpa called me, and I didn't know he knew how to use a phone. And my grandma fell getting the mail on the way to watch us qualify. So I just know she won't miss another qualifying session watching or another race. She was one of my biggest supporters. So, but yeah, I like to post things that mean stuff to me. Obviously, I do on my own social just because. It's easy to lose things or lose photos or anything. So putting that out there, it makes it easier to know where that photo is going to be.
So do you remember that moment from the photo?
I remember a handful, but yeah, that one specifically, I remember always wearing my Dale Jr.'s shirts at that point, and I thought that was like my favorite shirt to wear because it looked like his race suit. So, it looks really similar to the shirts you see us wear now. You have the or it looks like the suit. So that was at Disney World, which we'd go 1,000 times, and we stopped going there because it was either you go to Disney World or you pay for tires when I started racing. So, but no, that was a really fun week and trip that I hadn't seen those photos in a very long time.
And to get into racing, this will be the last race before you get a weekend off, and then after that, there isn't a weekend off the rest of the season. I know drivers talk about, hey, I'd just as soon be in the car every day of the year. What will be the challenge of after this Easter break of racing every weekend, whether it's for you, the team, or everything in general?
I don't know. I feel like everybody's so used to it, and for us, I think it would be important to have that reset and then be able to go, and hopefully we can refire, really strong and get the finishes I feel like we've been striving for and feel like we could get or are capable of getting. That if we get on a roll, I don't think any of us are going to want to stop or take a break and break up that momentum. So I think it's a good time for everybody to get a reset and then hopefully have a really big push and make that be the second half of the year.
Go to Jordan and then to Jacob.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. Kind of following up on that, you look at your recent results. Do you look at the results, or do you look at performance, or how would you kind of assess this little stretch right now?
Well, yeah, you look at the results, but then when the results aren't good, you got to look at the running average, right, or where we're at, and wonder why. And luckily, Spire Motorsports is super. Jeff Dickerson is the most understanding guy of all time, basically, and he's the one that is just like, man, we just got to finish the race. But he's like, I don't know what to tell you how to finish. You blow a tire, you blow this, you do this. It's kind of all things out of our control-ish, right? Of just kind of freak things that are just toppling on each other. But we're running good, so I think that was the biggest thing that he said is just don't get so caught up in the results right now because we're not 30th place race car. We're not slow. And he's like, man, right now we're just trying to find new ways to finish 30th. So it's just out of the get-go, and we're over this. And, we've gotten out of the way. And he reminded me there was times last year where we weren't great, and the other guys had misfortune. We finished good. So I think it's sustainable for us long term for sure to be fast and wonder what's kind of keeping us from finishing good rather than be slow and not sure why we're finishing okay. That's keeping it all us, hungry and excited and keeping our whole group together, right? It's if you get 5 30th place finishes in like 8 races, right? You start looking at crew guys and crew members and everything, and our group's so strong, and we're so we're good on pit road, we're good on the racetrack throughout the race at some point that we know everybody on our group's plenty capable of the potential of finishing really good. It's just we just got to be able to take advantage of the adversity, and as my dad would remind me when I was a kid racing, is their character building moments, and our 77 team's going through that right now. Yeah.
Jacob Zielman, Race Face Digital. Carson, 2 for you. First, you've had flashes here at Bristol of really good things. You're a short track guy, came up that way, but what is the challenge here compared to, I guess, what you grew up doing and what we would call a traditional short track, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, you're going so fast, right? Is that dirty air is a factor? Compared to that, the banking's a lot, and the track compound is always a confusion, right? Of if it's going to be on the bottom and what you're going to get. You never really 100% know when the top's going to burn in and when it's not. And it's a little easier to predict for like the Cup race just because it's 400 or 500 laps that you can kind of guess what the pattern's going to be just because you run enough laps. But, I remember when I run trucks here, it's always was a question mark if it was going to be burned in by the end of the race or at the start, and you saw that yesterday without any practice or anything. It started to move up the racetrack at like the last 10 laps or something. So, it's always a difficult deal here of just track position and balancing it out, and everybody's being super, super good and moving around or trying to. I got to run here in a late model when I was about 14 or whatever, so it still got a little bit of feel to that, when I was 14 racing here.
And your 77 team really had a lot of stability over the off season, but on the whole, when you look at what Spire Motorsports is doing and growing, how has the influence or the leadership of guys like Rodney, Travis, Michael, even though they're not directly working with your team organizationally, do you feel like that's lifted you or at least let you have some new ideas to work on your own craft with?
I'm sure a little bit there. For me on my craft, I'm very stubborn and like to go my own direction, do my own things, and I think that's been healthy for us. Michael has his process, Justin has his process, I have mine. But apart from the race cars, or where I see a lot of impact on our program is the unsung heroes. It's the Matt McCalls, the Dax, and a handful of others, right, that are in the competition space. Ryan Sparks not being on a pit box and overseeing the whole program. It's those 3 guys and the others that are sitting at home or sitting in the race shop right now that have, I think, really impacted the 77 more. Because Travis and Rodney, they're working on their own stuff. They can't, they still work together, but it's it's the job of Matt and Ryan and everybody else to figure out what Rodney and Travis are doing and communicate that to the 77 car and vice versa, and ultimately have all 3 cars be fast.
Go to John Newby next, and then Lee.
John Newby, Savage Ventures. So earlier today, Jesse Love was in here talking about his Cup debut and how he doesn't know what he doesn't know. I was curious, do you remember the first time you started a Cup race here? Because it was only your 4th start, and you finished 11th. I was curious, what was that process like for you adapted to this track and 500 laps?
Yeah, I remember. I ran the truck race, and it was different, right? I got to come in the fall race, and I had a Cup deal signed, and to go full time the next year. I we just ran third or fourth in the truck race. I was like plus 30 to make the final four on points. So I showed up with not looking at any data, any SMT for Cup because I was so focused on the truck deal to make that race. And I remember showing up thinking, I'm just going to go out here and figure it out. I don't think I looked at one piece of information. I didn't sleep and just mainly just breezed through that whole weekend and had a really, really good time with those guys and Luke and everybody. And I remember being super cool and confidence and ego at an all-time high probably per se. And then we ran like fifth, so that didn't help me or help bring me back down to earth. And we had a loose wheel and finished 11th. But yeah, I remember being really excited. Bristol night race. My Cup debuts I got to do my first few Cup races got to do the Gateway. Obviously, was a cool track and unique. But I got to do the Southern 500 and the Bristol night race as my second and third ever Cup start. So super cool tracks to fire off and get going. And I was not pumped, and it was Luke's favorite race, and he made me super confident that we were going to be good. And I don't think he expected us to be that good, but it was a lot of fun. Driving by a lot of heroes of mine and everything. I still remind Rodney that was the race they went like 6 laps down on speed. So I remind him of that, and so that's fun to rag on him a little bit.
Lee Spencer, Series 6 of NASCAR Radio and catchfence.com. You've improved every time you've gone to Talladega. Is there something that you've worked on to get better? Because that place, sometimes it's just luck of the draw.
They've wrecked more, probably. I normally just sit around. My average running position's like 33rd, and I finish like 14th because they crash, and I just avoid it. That's kind of been the super speedway strategy I've gone with because it's really difficult from the way this package is right now. It's more... I didn't last year for sure at super speedways. Our cars, even if I could have got to the lead, it was just way too draggy, and I wouldn't be able to hold on, and you'd get shuffle out really quick. So if I felt like the best we could be was the high single digits, low teens, I could bank on a crash at the end and having our car safe and being fourth or fifth in line, and maybe they crash the line and I win the race. And we kind of did that at Daytona again as we improve our cars. Like Atlanta, I was able to make a lot of moves and pace, but you can kind of draft on your own and make moves. But, Talladega and Daytona right now, it kind of just gets gridlocked. And I just feel like you're sitting in line waiting to crash almost at times. And, I kind of play into the role of, even if you miss the wreck and get a flat tire, you might go a few laps down. And so I try to pick a strategy rather than just hope on something. So I just kind of just go with we're going to wait till the green, white checkered that always seems to come and then go race. But this time at Talladega, I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably try and get track position more because I think our cars are improving. But we'll just kind of see how that goes.
You think guys will be, I won't say maybe on the chip or, chomping at the bit to get back to competition after being off for a week?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I've always looked at super speedways like they're another off week almost because you don't really prep. You don't really like the preparation and what we look at is so different than anything else. You're not stressed for qualifying. You're not stressed on practice. You're not talking about your race car. You get Friday and Saturdays basically off, and Sunday, it's just about saving fuel and picking the right line and working with your teammates really late in the race or really late in the stages. So, yeah, I don't know. I've always looked at like it's almost an off week per se compared to the amount of work that goes into the rest of the races.
Any final questions for Carson? Okay, we'll come to Cameron.
Cameron Richardson, NASCAR.com. Carson, obviously the results this year haven't been, based on you guys' speed, but, when we watch the race, we usually see the front of the pack, and, some of your run-ins over the last few weeks have, come in the mid-pack, but can you describe just how difficult it is, when you're having the race in the mid-pack during the race? Because, we see, everyone's pretty spread out and, top 5, top 10, but how just tight, compact, and, elbows out is it, having to run the mid-pack to work your way up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dogfight in the middle, but it's more so just because everybody's really close and mid pack or in the low teens, just because all cars are good and they know how close they are to getting clean air. You're only a few spots from getting that, and it reminds me of what you see in sprint car racing now is. The leader will fire off and take off, but the second you catch lap traffic, the whole pack starts to come back into it. And then, if they're behind lap cars or anything, you start seeing them really race and, throwing sliders. And then all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 cars on top of each other. And it's kind of similar to what we have right now with era-wise. Is I don't think too far away from, a type of sprint car race you'd see from High Limit or anything else of the top few spread out, and it starts building a little closer gap as you get to the high single digits, and then all the teens are on top of each other because they're all in just bad air.
Any last questions? Oh yes, Claire, go ahead.
Claire
We'll close with
Belang.
Claire.
Question about the track changing and whether it's easier, people have been around for years and kind of get used to things, but the track has changed, or being a young driver and probably kind of just learning it as you go. How much during the race, during a weekend, during the cold, do you even know what to expect with the track here?
Yeah, I mean, I know last year at this time, none of us knew what we were gonna have. Or this time now, you're expecting the worst or even worse than that or somewhere in between. So, for us, I know we've planned for all type of scenarios as you can. And, the spring race last year, I don't think anybody expected that. But it's been seen before. I remember watching on TV the 2008 or whatever it was at Indy when they had this issue or times before that. But it's just part of it. Now it's in the notebook, right? Now it's or in the playbook that this could be happen or something similar to that you have to prepare for. And I know when I got my pre-race notes from my spotter Tyler Green, he almost had 3 races worth of notes because he had somewhere in between how it was in the spring and then the fall race. Appreciate it.
All right, Carson, thanks so much for coming in. Good luck
thanks.
this weekend.
Thank you.